Hi guys, welcome to the next chapter in Animal Science 200. It's chapter 11 in your book on artificial insemination, estrus synchronization, embryo transfer, and there's a little bit on cloning also. We'll see if I can make it through in 15 minutes. I kind of doubt it. So, so the first thing we're going to talk about is artificial insemination. And I would imagine that some of you are familiar with artificial insemination. It is basically depositing semen in the female reproductive tract by artificial means rather than by natural mating. So when we talk about the technology of artificial insemination and embryo transfer, there's kind of a historical reference here, which might show up on some random quiz question or something. But the first animal that was successfully artificially inseminated was a dog, and the first embryo transfer was a rabbit. And the first offspring that was produced from using frozen embryos was cattle in 1973, so that was fairly recently. So this one is more important. This is actually a test question, so you might want to remember it. Take some notes. In terms of the percentage of artificial insemination matings in animal industries, so AI is AI is artificial insemination in animal science. In the tech world, AI is artificial intelligence. Let's not get those two confused. Anyway, in turkeys, that is the species that is almost 100% produced through artificial insemination. So you probably didn't know that, but your turkey dinner at Thanksgiving is a product of artificial insemination. And then the other category of where AI has become extremely important, and in the newer book, it's probably a higher percentage, but probably close to 90% of all dairy cattle in the United States are AI'd. And that's because dairy bulls can be very dangerous. We don't want them on the dairies. And then, of course, those of you in the hog industry know that swine artificial insemination has become more and more popular. And in the sheep industry, which I have a little experience, we are seeing more and more use of artificial insemination, especially in club lambs, but not just club lambs, even in commercial sheep. Okay, so let's talk about why would you use artificial insemination instead of having a male do the job like Mother Nature intended. So the primary advantage, which you're going to remember for a test and for future reference, the primary advantage of artificial insemination is that it allows us to maximize our genetic improvement. So we can use a superior bull or ram or whatever the male is because we don't have to have them on the place. We can purchase the semen frozen or fresh chilled and breed our animals to a very great animal. And so by using artificial insemination, we can make great progress in our herds or in our flocks. And genetic progress is how you make more money in the livestock business, because you have a cow that produces more milk if it's a dairy cow, or in the beef industry, a bull that has a higher yielding calves or other qualities that you want in your animal. So the other thing that they show you here is natural breeding. A bull can sire about 30 to 50 calves a year, whereas with artificial insemination, a bull can sire thousands of calves per year. And that has to do with the fact that when we collect the semen from the bull, we can extend that semen. So rather than one cow in a natural breeding, the cow puts millions of sperm cells inside that cow when he breeds her. Using artificial insemination, we can dilute that down to, the desired quantity, which differs by species, but it's far less. So we can get, from 30 to 100 breedings out of one semen collection from a ram or from a bull, not a ram. So the primary advantage, though, is that we get to use a genetically superior male. Other benefits of AI: prevents the transmission of sexually transmitted diseases. In cows, there's a very bad reproductive disease, and that is trichinosis, which is a reproductive disease and can be transmitted from a bull to cows, and it causes the cows to abort their calves. So we don't really want to transmit a disease like that. Also, when we use artificial insemination, we do not have to have a male animal on the ranch. So that reduces injuries to females, and bulls can be they're very big, they're very strong, they break things, and dairy bulls, Jerseys and Holsteins, can be very dangerous because of their temperament. AI allows us to use sires that can't breed naturally, and that is one of the things that's happened with with turkeys. Turkeys, because we have continually selected them for high breast meat yield, turkeys cannot mate naturally. The tom turkey can't climb on top of the hen because he's so top heavy because of our genetic selection for breast meat. So that is a perfect example of the benefit of AI. And artificial insemination can allow older sires to extend their reproductive life. And also, obviously, when we collect rams and bulls and goats, we look at the semen and we can determine whether they are fertile or highly fertile or infertile. So semen collection is done using an artificial vagina, and that is probably the most common method of semen collection. So the the bull is jumped onto a cow that's in heat, or sometimes they'll just mount a dummy, which is like just a mounting block, and the semen's collected, it's analyzed, the volume, concentration of sperm cells, whether the sperm is motile, and whether the sperm has a proper formation, like a head and a properly formed tail, and things like that. And that's all done using a microscope. So here's a AV, artificial vagina. This would be for a bull, and it looks the same in horses, and it's a lot smaller, the ones we use in sheep. But basically, it's a liner here. The bull jumps the cow. The AV is put over the bull's penis, and he ejaculates into the AV tube here. And then there's the sperm it's all lined with plastic, and the sperm go into the collection tube or a little baggie, and then they're analyzed under the microscope. And this is what they look like. I think this is two different kinds of semen, a bull and a horse. But what we're looking for is we want to see the normal morphology, what the cells look like, so they have to be normal. And sometimes, especially with rams, because that's my expertise, right? Because I have sheep, you have rams that, they are aggressive, they want to breed, but you jump them, you look at it under a microscope, and the tails aren't formed right, or the sperm are all dead. So that is really important, and that's definitely a benefit of artificial insemination. So once the semen is collected, looked at, a tiny sample is looked at under the microscope, and then, like I said, the semen is extended, so that means it's diluted, so that more females can be bred per collection. And that depends on the species, between horses, sheep, hogs, and goats. But if we're going to freeze semen, it's usually frozen in liquid nitrogen, and that's pretty common for cattle. Remember, cattle, we do a lot of artificial insemination, and by freezing it, we can ship it in a shipping container with liquid nitrogen, and we can ship that, all over the U.S. or all over the world for that matter. A lot of times we cannot freeze semen because we don't have the technology isn't that good. So we'll use fresh chilled semen, which is where the ram or the horse is collected. So he jumps, collect him in the AV, and then the semen is diluted. It's put in little straws, and that chilled dose is shipped overnight using FedEx, or FedEx is usually the one I use. Shipped overnight, so the next morning you're getting ready to do your artificial insemination. You go to FedEx, pick up the shipping container, hope it's there, and you can breed your sheep to a ram that might be located in Oklahoma or somewhere else in the United States. So fresh chilled is a little more challenging from the logistics, but it is required for some species where the freezing process really lowers the effectiveness of the sperm. This is what what is called a cane, and this is what is in the semen tank, which is like a big container that contains liquid nitrogen. And so these are the semen straws, and each cane can hold several straws. I don't know how many, but on the straw is the label, and the label has the bull's number, or a lot of times they're also color coded because you don't want to breed the wrong cow to the wrong bull. So anyway, but that is what this device is. So when we get ready to breed, usually have all your equipment handy, and this little thing that looks like somebody's coffee cup right here is actually a little defroster. So it defrosts the semen in warm water, and then the semen are put into these little straws, or the straws are put into these little tubes, and they're kind of like what we use to put the semen inside the cow. And, we do have an artificial insemination program here at Modesto Junior College. It is a very viable job option for, like I said, now it's becoming multiple species. So one of the things, that's kind of the male side, collecting the semen, freezing it, determining the motility, the morphology, and the volume that's needed. On the female side, the part that has to be done prior to artificial insemination is we have to make sure that the female is in heat or she's ready to breed. And that's what estrus is. So estrus is the specific time when the female is fertile and she'll allow breeding. So different animals have different estrus signs of estrus, but it's really important that we can detect the heat signs so that we know the animal is fertile at that time. So this is really important in the timing of artificial insemination, because if we breed them and they're not fertile, there's no egg in her reproductive tract, then we're not going to have an animal get pregnant, and that's the goal. So there's different signs of estrus depending on heat, depending on the species. So in cattle, we have what we call standing heat. Goats wag their tails. Sheep have very few estrus signs. Pigs have the immobility response where they will stand still. They don't move, put weight on their back, and they just stand. And horses have all kinds of obnoxious behaviors they display. They whinny, they pace, they pee a lot, and they squeeze their vulva together. It's called winking their vulva. But the signs of estrus are part of animal science to learn when that female is in heat and when she can be bred. So here's a couple of pictures. In cattle, sometimes we use these heat detection tags. So it actually, I'll show you the next slide, I'll go back to it. This is a tag that's been, the bull or another cow, probably a cow, right? Or a heifer has mounted this heifer or cow and scraped all the silver coating off. So once the silver is scraped off, we know that cow has been mounted, and that is what standing heat is. If she is standing for another animal to mount her, and the females will mount them because it's, kind of like instinctive behavior. And so once that tag is scraped clean of the silver part, then we know that cow's in heat. And this is very easy to see across the field. A lot of times on dairies, you'll see cows and they have their tail heads have chalk on them, because a lot of people don't buy these. They'll just use the chalk markers. And once a heifer or cow mounts the one in heat, then that is a sign of estrus, and the chalk will be gone. So when we do breed the cow, I only have about a minute left. When we breed the cow, that tube that has the straw of semen in it is put inside the cow's reproductive tract. So this is the cow's vulva from the outside, and the inseminator will reach his arm with a glove on it into the cow's intestine. So he's reaching into the colon, goes through the rectum into the large intestine, and feels down through the intestinal wall to feel the cervix. And the cervix is the part of the reproductive tract that blocks the uterus from the vagina. And oh man, I'm going to run out of time. I'm going to have to start this on the next slide presentation. So I'll see you in version 2.